and welcome to the new episode of Talking Law from Women in the Law UK. I'm Sally Penni, MBE, barrister at Kenworthy's Chambers in Manchester and the founder of Women in the Law UK. Today I'm talking law with a woman who you will know best as barrister Martha Costello in the hit TV series Silk. The incredible actress Maxine Peake. I can't wait for you to hear how Maxine prepared for the role, how she believes lawyers and actors have much in common, and why she has such passion for access to justice.
Hello, Sally.
Thank you so much for agreeing to come on this podcast, Talking Law. Now, I've been thinking about career progression, whether to consider becoming a QC or, a judge, and just what's next after 21 years at the bar. So I thought I'd meet the one and only real Silk, in my view, Martha Costello, played by Maxine Peake. What a great place to start. Maxine, you're much loved, not just by Women in the Law UK, men and women supporters, but by the country, and very well known for not just your television work, but also you've been in films, but also your theatre work, from the National to the Royal Exchange. So I wanted to start from the beginning, really, and ask, why acting and why not law?
Yeah. To be honest, it's so funny when you do your job. When I did Silk, and you get so into it and you think, why didn't I do law? That's the trouble with acting. You dip into different things and you go, why didn't I do this? And why didn't I? But it never even crossed my mind when I was younger because I just didn't think I'd be, clever enough. So acting was basically because I like showing off, but then I met lots of barristers and went, they like showing off too. And you realise that actors and barristers are basically cut from the same cloth.
Really?
I think so. In fact, I did a lot of research during Silk and I got involved in the Cliche charity.
Yes.
We used to do events and then we'd go out for a meal afterwards, and spending time with the barristers who were much better storytellers and far more theatrical and, really sort of accomplished entertainers. And I remember thinking, I don't feel so out of my depth because there is a common ground. There is a performance aspect.
Yes. Well, it's interesting because certainly on our circuit, there's a judge who's retired now, Judge Steiger, who loved theatre and starred in theatre off duty, and he really, I think he was a military man, really, and, he was really very serious in court, but then in the theatre, a completely different character. So it's interesting, the comparisons that you make between us. So how did you become an actress? And I'll come back to all my Silk questions later. But how did you become an actor and how did you get into it?
How did I get into acting? It was a sort of long process, really, initially. It was something I'd always, I think, been drawn to performing, but I think at the time it was more comedy. I think growing up, in the North, in a very sort of working class family, the only sort of theatre I'd seen was at working men's clubs. So it was that element of going on stage, especially as a woman, and you singing or you tell jokes.
Yes.
So I'd sort of set my mind on I wanted to be a comedian. That's initially obsessed with Marty Kane and then moved on to sort of Victoria Wood and Julie Walters, and idolised both of them. They were really, what I aspired to.
Yeah.
And did lots of bits of pieces. I went to a secondary school which we didn't really do drama. We did one production of we didn't even finish the production of Pirates of Penzance. When all the students realised you had to rehearse after school, decided to drop out. So there's only 3 of us left. There was only 3 girls left, and there's no way you could have even done a sort of a more avant-garde version of Pirates of Penzance with 3 women. I'm sure, Sammy McBurney could throw something together brilliantly. But I used to go to a local Unity church in Bolton, the Unitarian church. I just decided one day I was going to give that a go because I had some friends and they used to do little plays and things like that. I just loved it. I loved making people laugh and get a reaction.
Yes.
So that was where it started. But then it was admitting to myself that I wanted to do it as a career. I think it was harder to admit to myself than to other people, really. So I went to Salford Tech, literally, just over there, the Adelphi building.
Oh, yes. We're recording in my chambers. So, it literally is around the corner.
It's just, so they did it wasn't even a BTEC, it was just a Salford College of Technology Diploma in Performing Arts. I did 2 years there. I had a terrible time. I was told in the first 2 weeks that I wasn't cut out. I didn't have the right personality. I was very shy at the time. I was very tomboyish and large and very awkward. Not all singing or dancing.
Yes.
And I think, so I was sort of written off very early. And probably that was the best thing that happened to me in a funny way. I think being told you caned.
Yes.
I am very stubborn, a bit contrary. So if somebody says I can't do something, then I'm going to do it. So I think if I had somebody had said, oh, you're naturally talented, I probably would have moved on and done something else. So I sort of had a battle for 2 years.
Yes.
And then eventually, long story short, auditioned for RADA, just on a whim to see what it was all about. And I got in, which was the biggest shock.
Wow.
But then you get there and you think, well, how do I pay? A single parent family, no money. Bolton, authority said, we'll give you £600 in your final year. And you're looking at ninth, and then it was £9,000 in £3,000 a term then, all those years ago.
Yeah.
So I thought, well, that's not going to happen. And then RADA got in touch and said, we'll put you up for this scholarship, the Patricia Ruthermere Award, which was Patricia Ruthermere, Bubbles Ruthermere, was from the Ruthermere Daily Mail, Associated Newspapers. And every drama student who had got a place at a registered drama school that there was no way they could afford to go, was put up for this award. So I don't know, it's probably about 19 of us. And then it whittled down to 4. And I was really surprised I got into the last 4. And then Richard Eyre was the final judge, and we had to go, and there was a room full of, these sort of middle-aged men, and I had to get up and do a monologue. And then I remember Richard Eyre, and I didn't know who Richard Eyre was, which I think, again, naivety got me. I think everyone else was quite nervous. They go, oh my God, it's Richard Eyre. And I was like, who's Richard Eyre? He hadn't done anything at the Bolton Octagon or the Royal Exchange. I didn't know who he was. So I was very much, and I remember him saying to me, so what are you going to do if you don't get in, if we don't give you this money? I went, I don't know, I'll have to rob a bank. Just that sort of, and I remember they all just sort of laughed. And I came out and went, oh, well, that's me. Why did I do that? And I came away, and there was a young a lady they called Kay, who was organised. I still remember because I still got the letter, and she said to me, yes, everybody, you've got to ring by 10 o'clock tomorrow morning and we'll let you know. And I didn't ring. Because I thought, I haven't got it, what's the point?
My gosh.
So at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, my mum rang me and went, somebody called Kay has been ringing, you need to ring her. And I thought, what, just to tell me I've not got it? And so I rung her really nonchalant. I went, hiya Kay, no, it's all right. She went, no, you've got it. I was like, what? She said, you've got it.
Oh my God.
And I still remember telling my mum, and my mum didn't stop crying for days. She kept saying, I'm just going to take the dog out for another walk. She just couldn't, because she'd been, I must admit, my parents, they divorced when I was 8, but it's not that they weren't encouraging. Well, they weren't, but I think it was more out of fear. Sometimes you go, why they didn't encourage me? Because I think it was so alien to them.
Yes.
It's not that they discouraged me, but they didn't want, I think it was that thing of getting my hopes up. They were frightened.
Yes.
So I think when it actually happened, and I remember years before, my mum on the phone to a friend going, she's messing about. She wants to be an actor. I mean, I'm so tempted to tell her she needs to get a proper job, but she'll get over it. She'll grow out of it, And I remember sort of keeping that, burying it. But it's the concern, I suppose, for parents.
Absolutely. I feel for that. Gosh, I'm feeling emotional, just like, gripped in just hearing how it all started. One of the earliest things that we've seen you in, we as in, women in the law, whoever's listening, was Shameless and Dinnerladies, which I absolutely loved. Dinnerladies, mainly because I'm a huge Victoria Wood fan. What was it like meeting Victoria Wood? Again, I think back to those times, and I think, what was I thinking? I just remember it was coming up, third year drama school, and your third year is all practical, so it's plays when you're at RADA. And it's sort of run like a repertory company. So you're doing a play at night, rehearsing a play, and you put it on, and agents come and casting directors come. And everyone had lots of all these big fancy agents fighting over them. I mean, Joanna Page was in my year, and I remember she had agents fighting over signing her, and little old me didn't. I had one, and thank goodness for them, Barry Bennett then. They were brilliant with me, and
they sort of got in touch and said, we're quite interested in taking on. And I couldn't believe it. I was going, oh my goodness, an agent wants to take me on, because I'd sit in dressing rooms and people didn't mean it, but they'd be like, oh, I've got another script. It's a Hollywood movie. Oh. And I'd just sit there going, nobody wants to take me on. What am I going to do? And then I got this call. I think I'd done Charlotte Keatley's My Mother Said I Never Should. And they'd seen that. I was playing the grandma. I played lots of older women.
Yes, I saw that in my research and I wondered why. You were quite a young woman.
Anyway, they said they were interested. I went to meet them and they were just so lovely to me and so encouraging about what they thought I could do. So I thought, I'm going to sign with them. An amazing Lindsay Granger. And I still remember sitting in her office and it was a beautiful office. And she was amazing, Lindsay. She had this sort of coiffured hair and she was really sort of, not handsome. She was really striking, amazing cheekbones. And she had this sort of slightly sort of Atlantic accent. She had this big picture of Stuart Granger in Scar and Motion. I went, oh, I like Stuart Granger, me, do you? And she went, I should think so. He's my father. And I was like, oh, this is it. I've made it. And she was brilliant with me, Lindsay. So she called me and said, we've got you an audition for Victoria with a thing called Dinnerladies. And I remember thinking, I was so not defeatist, but I thought, what did I think? I trained at RADA for 3 years, but I remember thinking, well, I won't get it, but I'm going to go and meet Victoria Wood. So they'd sent her... I'd done a lot. I'm sort of go off in tangents. You have to stop me.
No, I'm really good because she was such a wonderful woman for a lot of us women. And I just wonder, as your kind of idol, what was it like?
It was really. I remember going into the room, and I remember then. I still remember. I was waiting to go in, and there was another friend, I'm sure she wouldn't mind me saying, Emma Rydell, and she was going up for Twinkle as well. And Emma's completely different than me. Emma's like petite and gorgeous, little sort of pixie-like. And there was me and Emma, and then there was me, big. And me and Emma, we got friends because we basically used to audition. There was a point when you go on the audition circuit and you'd see the same people, and you all go for the same parts, and you might as well be friends with people. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
and you'd rather your friends get the jobs.
Totally.
So me and Emma were like, oh, hello. We were chatting, and I still remember Shobna Gulati was there. This is before we'd got the job, and we were all chatting away, and then we had to go one by one into the room. And I walked into the room, and there was Anne Reid, Thelma Barlow, I think Duncan was there, and Vic. And I think I had sort of I don't know, it was a protection mechanism of just slightly switched off. And I remember saying to me, now you're northern enough, so you don't be any more northern. That was the first thing she said to me. And I said, I'm sorry. She said, well, people come in and even northern it. And I thought, oh yeah, I get what she means. And then she said, so you're just going to read with everybody? I was like, okay. And I remember just thinking, I'm not bothered if I didn't get it. I've just met Victoria Wood. I mean, I thought, where was your drive, Maxine? And then that was, and then I got the call saying you'd got it. And then Shobna had got it. And it was something else. And the people, Thelma Barlow, Anne Reid, and Thora Heard, Dora Bryan.
I know. Honestly, I watched so many of it.
Eric's, cracky sacks. Everybody, people were popping in. Elspeth Gray, Elspeth Gray came in. We had an amazing, lovely Andy Dunn, and Joanne Froggatt did episodes, and it was just the best cast. Leslie Nichol, Julie Walters.
Julie Walters, I know.
Wow,
I know.
Jeanette Cranky.
Oh my God, I know.
Jeanette Tough, Jeanette Tough, Jeanette Tough from the Cranky. We just had, it was pretty mind blowing. But I think at the time, if I thought about it too much, I think I take things. I just sort of
take it in your stride,
you do, don't you? And then you look back and think, crikey. Because I still do that when I feel low and I think, oh, nobody thinks I'm any good. And I go, well, you did play Twinkle and you did play Martha. So you can't get too deep.
Totally.
So that's the thing that keeps me going. Keep your confidence up, Maxine. You did play Dinnerlady and then you went to play a QC. So
yes, absolutely. And let's just be clear, a much loved QC. There's a question I always ask my guests. It's towards the end, so I won't ask you yet, which is about who's your favourite fictional lawyer? And I've lost count of the number of times people say Martha Costello.
Wow.
Martha Costello. Even the men say Martha Costello. Martha Costello. Because for us, it was one of the first times really that we felt that the representation of the character and the scripts actually looked quite accurate. And the subject matters. I remember the first episode, or maybe it was one of the first, with a very young defendant who was charged. And just your whole approach to it, I think we all just felt like, oh gosh, this is a lawyer that actually, a barrister, we're all barristers, who actually feels like a real barrister. It wasn't over-fictionalised. It wasn't...
Well, I think because Peter Moffat was a barrister, he was at the bar, and I think he has still a lot of love for that world. And we had, from Furniville Chambers, Philippa McAtasney, she was sort of the...
right. Sort of the base.
Yeah,
the base character.
She was the sort of go-to for research, because they did pack me off. I did have a few nights. I mean, that's one thing I found about, I'm not speaking ill of Furniville Chambers, but I have never been out so late drinking. Oh my goodness. I think I scooted off about 4 a.m. and left them to it. And I was trying to keep sober because I wanted to absorb everything. And they carried on, and they had cases in the morning and probably just smashed those cases. I was so impressed, but I suppose it was that very much work hard.
Yes, totally. And then also, that's probably a different time to now.
It was a long,
Yeah. Who was like that? He's passed now, John Broadley. And that's one of the things that he says about the bar, that a lot of those days are probably almost gone. And he didn't like the computer, the introduction of, just using screens and computers. He was an old school barrister, and he enjoyed those. He would still phone and say, I finish in court, lunch. And you're like, no, I've still got to carry on, and I've got domestic duties.
But it's like with acting, the sort of drinking party culture there's a new generation coming now, I suppose, see it very much like a business. The competition is so tough, so you've got to be on it. When I first started, it was mainly, great, we've got a job, right, where are we going out? You're filming in Birmingham, brilliant, where are we going to go out in Birmingham? And we'd have fabulous times and make lifelong friends. And so I've got, actually, were we serious about the work as we were about socialising, and then you sort of go, okay, and this new generation is sort of actually learnt from them to go, there's a point where you do have to really knuckle down, because it is a tough...
Yeah. No, it is. Maxine, I want to ask you about some of your other work, all of which is brilliant. And I'm thinking about criminal justice. I'm thinking about playing Hindley.
Yes.
3 Girls, about the Rochdale case.
Yeah.
And all of those are really quite powerful series, if you like, and productions. And they centre around criminal justice, which is where I work. So I wondered if you've got an underlining kind of passion for access to justice, per se, which is kind of fueled sometimes by some of the work that you do. I mean, in your work and indeed outside of theatre and production and so on.
Yes, I do. And to be honest, I think it was heightened when I did criminal justice.
Yes.
I think going into that world and really, because I think most people don't think about the criminal justice system till they enter into it. And most people think they'll never enter into it. And actually you think we're all, you know what I mean? You never know the moment. You never know when you might be on the other side.
Yes.
When and I think it's something we all need to be much more aware of, and it's something that affects us all. And, I just remember I remember my parents going through a divorce. My mum was getting legal aid. And, you start to realise she couldn't have done what she did if she hadn't have had legal aid. So I just remember it being important. But I think I didn't really start to think of it. I'd always believed anybody should have access to justice, but more of the minutiae when I went into criminal justice. And I remember doing criminal justice, and we'd done one of the first Kalisha events, and
it is just a brilliant trust.
Yeah, and we did. And Peter Moffat said, "Okay, we're doing the trial of Lady M, and I'm packing you off to go and see Helena Kennedy." And I said, "I'm sorry."
She's been on this.
So off I went to her house. Knocking on the door, so nervous. And I remember going in, and she sat down and she went, okay, and we had to do it like a proper, she was defending me. And but just, speaking to Helena, and I just had to go, oh my goodness, this world, this complex world, this criminal justice system that affects us all. and speaking to her and finding more about the amazing work that she does, and really about how the criminal justice system is really stacked against women. Again, you don't realise. I also do a little bit of work with an organisation called Women in Prisons. I'm an amazing woman called Katie Fraser, just watching we've gone to see a screening of a documentary about Moss Side and Hume and the community and we got chatting and she said, I work for this organisation, Women in Prisons. So I sort of kept in, and you just start to build up this picture that you go, oh my goodness, this is a world I didn't really know, and I still don't understand.
No.
And I just think it's so imperative that we all have access to justice.
I totally agree with you. And I remember when criminal justice came on, my mum, who watches anything criminal justice, and is a huge fan as well, will phone up, because I don't think she realises you can watch things on iPlayer. Watch BBC One, 9:00. You'll learn a few things. And I'm like, what? I'm preparing a case or, putting the children to bed. And I remember that was a really powerful, because it was the first time, again, that actually everybody really, because in that programme, you killed Matthew McFadden, so he wasn't in for very long. At all, really. And, it was the first time, really, we often think out loud about the effect on the defendants, the victims, beyond us representing them, and for it to be done really quite well, I think, for the public understand, was really excellent. So it's great that you've
well, then I think as well, because Peter picked a sort of, in a way, an archetypal middle class white family.
Yes.
That didn't, that people don't think it happened, that abuse happened. And when you put it in that context, I think then it explodes the myth, doesn't it? That it only, of course, poverty exacerbates those situations, but that only it happens to people of from different sort of financial backgrounds and blah 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 and different cultures, and you think no, it's an epidemic throughout, So
no, which is fantastic. I want to ask you about some of your stage work and playing Hamlet, which is one of my favourites. So we could talk about some of the other Shakespeares, but Hamlet's one of my favourites, which you played, obviously, Hamlet, here in the Royal Exchange, and then it was subsequently filmed. So people have actually watched it live in cinemas, as they could do before the pandemic. And that role had always been played by a man.
Yeah.
And, we are a women's organisation with male members and supporters and so on and so forth. But I wondered, when you were playing that, did you feel, not the pressure, but because it hadn't been done, did you feel that, wow, this is historic? Or did you just get on with it? Because the earlier things you were talking about, that idea of, I'm not going to get it anyway, so, whatever. When you were playing that, did the imposter syndrome kick in again? Or did you think, I've got this?
Well, no, I never thinking I got this. I think because, I think in the UK, the last female had been, 30 years previously, Frances de la Tour.
Yeah.
I can't remember, it was the King's Arms. She played Hamlet.
I saw that. I'm too young to remember.
Well, yeah, but it was, so that was sort of the last time. I didn't think of it being an historic moment. And I suppose the pressure was off because initially, because I'm not a bloke, so I won't get compared to the men, but then I sort of did in a way, it was quite interesting. And then you think, well, you sort of want to, but then you don't, and some of the criticism, you're like, well, I'm not a man.
Yes.
So, but then I suppose if you enter in, and we know that sometimes the British theatre critics can be brutal. There's some fabulous ones, but there's some as well that I think maybe should, put the lid on the pens.
Yes.
So I sort of didn't, and to be honest, because it was at Manchester at the Royal Exchange Theatre, and because it was with Sarah, I think there's something about the Manchester audience. I always feel the support. I feel like they're going, "Go on, girl." It's a bit like she's one of us. Yeah. She's from round here.
Yeah.
Because
it was like that in Peterloo. It's sort of, forgive me, in the Peterloo Massacre production. I forget the name of it now. Manchester International Film Festival.
Oh, the Mask of Anarchy.
Yes. It's a bit like that, which, you just, we're all like, yes, go on, this is going to be good.
Yeah, and I think there's something about that Manchester spirit, especially nowadays, of us going, okay, let's just do this, let's be brave. And I feel that, for me, maybe I'm misguided, but I feel there's an appreciation from the audiences to go, yeah, this is quite a tough thing, and this is a woman, and I always do that thing as well, that people go, well, as a woman, and I go, and I was a working class woman playing Hamlet. How many working class men have played Hamlet? Okay, John Sim, and probably recently, but so I didn't at the time, but again, I do this thing where I just sort of, I jump into things feet first and don't really think about it, and it's only afterwards it sort of comes like a steam train, actually on the back of the head. But I always think, if I think about things too much, then I wouldn't do them.
That's like me.
Yeah, you just got to go, am I going to, I'd mentioned it to Sarah as a possibility for a project, slightly half-hearted. She said, no, not at all. That's a really ridiculous idea. And then about a week later, she rang me back and said, were you serious? And I said, you know me, Sarah, I'm never serious. But she said, well, I'm up for it if you are. And I went, well, if you think I can do it, I'll do it. I need someone else to tell me. Because if I did what I thought I could do, I wouldn't probably leave the house on most days. So Sarah said, yeah, I think we can do it. So we said, great.
Wow.
And we were lucky because we were allowed to, within the exchange, the board, gave us that freedom.
Yes.
Where else? Nobody else would have cast me as Hamlet. And I think at the time we'd heard that there was going to be another female. I think after we'd agreed to do it, and I don't think we'd said we were going to do it, and we hadn't told anybody. And then it sort of come through the tom-tom drums that there was going to be a female production in London, but then they said they weren't doing it because we were doing ours, which I thought was a real shame. Because I thought, why couldn't there be two?
Yeah.
There's umpteen male productions of Hamlet.
Yeah.
But, and I sort of look and I think, the Abbey Ruth Negger did hers, because Jumbo's doing what I'm just really excited now that it's become part of the canon for female actors to go, yeah, why not? So it's, I think people might say we're not doing it, it's nothing to do with the fact you did it, but I sort of feel if I've opened a door a little bit, Sarah's, and it's definitely, a joint enterprise of sort of opened that door and gone, and more now females think, yeah, why not? Yeah. That's within our reach, and that can be on our classical canon. So I'm going to do that. So that was exciting.
I think it was exciting, and I think Sarah Frankham, who's a brilliant director who directed you in Hamlet and some other productions as well, it is brilliant. And that powerhouse and that kind of female team, I think has been a role model, because actually here, Women in the Law, when we see women appointed as QCs or as judges into the Supreme Court, in that kind of leadership position, it does create a kind of feeling that, wow, they've done that. Maxine has played Hamlet, and she was directed by a woman as a extra treat. And I think that has done that. When we see, kind of women doing it for themselves, it does provide us with role modelling and encouragement. So I really do think that happened.
And I think what Sarah and myself set out to do wasn't to emulate any male productions. We did it very on our own time. We said, like Sarah, I think one of Sarah's brilliance, many sort of her talents, but she can take an old text and work on it like a new piece of writing. So it was like, kick everything out that you've sort of learned before. This isn't about me going, look how well I can speak Shakespeare. This is about engaging. And we wanted to engage a younger audience, a more diverse audience, to come and watch it and go, you can understand this. Chop all that stuff out that, I'm not a purist when it comes to Shakespeare. I'm like, hack it out, get it out. It needs to be quick, concise. People have got to get a last train. If you're going after 11 o'clock, you've got an audience that, you don't want, as we know in this day and age, you don't want young women hanging around the streets of Manchester. You want to get, you've got to take all this into consideration about your audience. And we were, chopped it. And I think we had an amazing cast of young, performers and old. Unfortunately, last year we lost the fantastic John Shrapnel.
Yeah.
But it was...
And very diverse.
Yeah, it was...
I loved it. I must declare that I'm a trustee of the Royal Exchange. I wasn't then, but I saw it several times. And it was so diverse. It was a variety of ethnicities, gender, class. It was a wonderful production.
And that's how theatre should... Well, that's how I believe all visual arts and, television, film. I mean, when people say, well, they couldn't be their brother or they couldn't be their, you think, oh, it's not real.
Yes.
Even if it is based on a real story, you're watching it through. Does it matter?
Yes.
Throw that away. Let's use our imagination. That's what's exciting,
Absolutely. And, Maxine, we as lawyers are consumers of the theatre because it gives us escapism. And we look at our well-being and we want to have just an escape from the cases we're dealing with, from tax to employment to criminal justice, whatever we're doing. And so, we're really grateful to you in the arts for keeping it going. But one of the things that's happened with COVID, of course, is that, theatres are closed. None of us have had that escapism in the traditional way. Of course, there's Netflix, but that's a different conversation.
Yeah.
So I wondered for you what you've been doing to keep going in the pandemic and for your well-being, really. And I hope you're going to say you've been writing because I loved a production that you wrote, which was Queen's
of the
College. So I wondered if you've been writing and what have you been doing in COVID?
I have been writing. So So initially, right at the beginning, I was when we went into lockdown, I was midway through a production of a fabulous play called The Welkin by
yes, we had tickets to see
Lucy Kirkwood.
Yes, 26 of us in London.
Oh, crikey! Yeah. So we it was March, and we had a break. We had a 3-week break. Because obviously the National Theatre plays are in repertory, so you go off for a bit and another play comes on, sets up, they'll run for a bit and then they go off and you come back on. So we'd had 3 weeks. It was, I think, 19 women and 2 men. It was brilliant.
Yeah.
We had, Cecilia Noble, Natasha Cottrell, Hayden Gwynn, June, oh my God, June! I was going to say June Watson.
Oh, right.
So this brilliant cast. Zainab Hassan. So we were having a ball, and then we'd all gone away for 3 weeks, and then we had 1 week left of our break, and we just got a call saying, it's done. Don't come back. Not that brutally, and the National were great, and we all, which was really difficult because theatre money isn't great, and there's grades within theatre, so some of those young female actors, it was some of the first jobs, so they, so the National did look after everybody till the end of the sort of contract, which I think a lot of people panicked.
Yes, I know.
Because I know everyone thinks actors rake in millions, but there's a lot of theatre, it doesn't, it depends, like I say, on what grade you are, but I know, and a lot of these young women live in London. Yeah. So trying to pay your rent and I don't know how they manage, but they do, and they're amazing. So that was done, and it was a shame because we'd all got on so well. But we've like everything, we've got a WhatsApp group called we call the Hot Matrons because it was. It was one of the characters was going quite severely through the menopause, so we were matron's jury. So there it was. It was sort of 12. It was sort of 12 angry men, but 12 sort of menopausal women. So it was about we were a matron's jury. So again, it was illegal.
Yes,
we were in that legal
that's why
world.
We were going to come and watch it.
So that all stopped. So that was that, and I was back here. I've been staying down in London, so it's like, wow, what's going to happen next? I did a lot of going. Okay, I'm at home. I've not been. Normally, I'm not home for more than 2 weeks, so I was getting used to that.
Yes, because it's weird, isn't it?
Yeah.
Suddenly you're at home in your own house. I moan about cleaning, never mind homeschooling. But that is quite new because if you're used to, project after project, it's a bit like cases. You do a case, then you move on to the next one. It might be in Nottingham, it might be in Manchester.
Yeah, of course.
It is. It's a new feeling to just be at home.
Yeah, which was great. But then after a bit, you start going, oh. And then I got a call saying that they were going to do. Nicholas Heitner had this brilliant idea of filming, doing a sort of, not rehash, but, a restaging for television, Alan Bennett's Talking Heads.
Oh.
And I got an email saying, would you like to be part of and he said, Alan thinks she'll be great. I've never met Alan Bennett. I used to sort of stalk him around M&S in Camden, but I think a lot of people did.
Yeah.
Everyone I speak to, I talked to my friend Bridget Grant the other day, and she went, yes, I used to stalk him too around M&S. And so she said, and Alan thinks she'd be great for Miss Fossard Finds a Fee. And that was it. I mean, it's so funny. My partner says, Pavno, he laughs and he says, it's the only thing you've done that you still remember all the lines, because we still say them to each other. So I did that for the television, and it was a little bit more somber when I did it for the televisions. And Nick said, obviously, we'll ask Sarah, she'll direct. And I was like, brilliant. And so we did it all over Zoom, which was quite odd.
Wow.
And I think we were a bit, and I was a bit shy, and I'm not quite, so we didn't really sort of block it through. I just sat on my settee a lot and did it. And then I started to realise I got a terrible bad back, and then thought, yes, I need to start doing some yoga. So I started doing a bit of yoga during lockdown, because there's lots of sitting on soft furnishings, which is not, you need a proper chair, don't you? Yeah. So we did that. And I literally drove down. It's very strange because it's quite early in lockdown when nobody was supposed to drive anywhere. And I was very nervous. I had to drive down to the EastEnders studios where we were filming it. And I remember saying, what happens if I get stopped? And they said, well, we're going to give you a letter saying you're a key worker. And I thought, I can just see this now, getting pulled by the police and going, I'm an actor. I'm a key worker. The nation needs me.
Well, we did. I tell you, we did. So, I'd be there representing. Yes.
Yeah, so we went down, we did it in a day. I went to stay in this quite there was nobody else in this big sort of Georgian manor hotel that they put sort of cast of EastEnders up. So I was sort of in there, just me and one other guy, with my wet wipes and my anti-bac wiping everything. I mean, it's very clean, but sort of lay there going, what am I doing in the middle of a pandemic in a strange hotel? I got up in the morning, we filmed all day. And so Sarah directed, but Sarah's got asthma, so didn't come down to this. So Nick then, and I'd never met Nick Heitner before, but he was fabulous and he was so supportive. So Nick sort of directed from the floor as Sarah, Sarah was sort of on the phone.
Oh, right.
So we did that for the day. And I got very excited because we were on the EastEnders set, and I took a picture of Natalie Cassidy's dressing room plaque because I think she's great. And then I remember sort of driving back, and I've got a friend Bridget Grant, she's a journalist. Bridget just lives around the corner, so Bridget sort of stood on the opposite side of the road. She said, "I've got to come and say hello. I'm literally around the corner." So we did that strange thing where we're sort of shouting across the road to each other. And I was going, "It's so mad, I can't see you." And then off I went back home, and then that was it. And then we got a call saying they're thinking of putting them on at the Bridge Theatre. Oh, and it was, I loved it. We did a month, and I did it with the brilliant Tamsin Gregg, who, what an amazing actress, but what a gorgeous human being she is. And Tamsin did hers first, and then I'd do mine, and we, it was an hour and 45, and we'd just toddle in and do our little thing. The audience were brilliant. The Bridge had just organised it so well, the social distancing. Oh. And everyone said, and just think, but it was the privilege in this time to be stood on a set. I used to get quite emotional because I used to think, I've been given this gift here where I can actually be on this stage in this really difficult time.
Yeah.
And I loved it. And then my partner came in. I said to him, I'm just going to tell you, I've slightly heightened the comedy since the telly. And he came to see it on the last night, and he went, oh my goodness. Because that was it. Once I got the laughs, I was off. I'd gone full, trying to completely aping Patricia Routledge, although you can never, top Ms. Routledge, but I was giving it full on. I was having a ball because I missed doing comedy. I've not done comedy for so long, and not comedy on stage. And
yes.
Oh, so I was very camping it up, as they say.
Well, no, I was going to ask you about that because, you started off by saying, well, I wanted to do comedy, and actually a lot of the work has been quite serious.
And it never meant to be, but I started doing comedy. I'd always done comedy. I'd always been, you're the funny one, you're the funny fat, no, girl, that's what you do. And then again, I was like, well, no, I want to have a go, it's serious. So Myra See No Evil really was the first part that I did that was serious. I just wanted to have a go. And then after that, I sort of, I got stuck.
Yeah.
I'm not knocking it, but I think I think people get the impression that I'm quite serious.
Yes, they do.
I'm really not. I hope I don't think I am.
Well, one of the things you do which is not serious are some of this DJing.
Oh, yeah.
That you've been doing now. Quite a lot of barristers that I know, call themselves bedroom DJs. But actually, I think you're quite a good DJ.
Oh,
how did that come about?
I'm not so sure about good. It came up.
Well, not serious anyway. Not serious.
Well, there used to be. I don't know if they're still going. There used to be nights called the Bot Local. They used to have at the Irish Centre in
Taunton. Yeah.
And they did one up. What was the club in Prestwich they did? And Alison Bell, she's called, I think she does a lot of sort of like PR work and stuff around Manchester. And she got in touch and said, look, I hear you've got a vinyl collection. And I said, yes, I do. I've got a lot of vinyl. And she said, well, would you be up for it? And I said, I can't DJ. I've done it, again, bedroom DJ. I mean, we've had parties in the house. I used to sort of put the record, but I'd had a few drinks and then I didn't care. And it was lots of scratching and not deliberate scratching, So I said, okay. And then after that, I did it. More and more requests came in. In fact, at one point, I got, I'm name dropping now, but I got, but I got quite pally with Mike Joyce from the Smiths. And Mike got in touch and said, my DJ agent wants to know if you want representation. I was like, no, I'm not going down that. That's silly. No, I can't reel in. And it's a full time. You have to keep on top of the record. But I mean, a lot of stuff, because I used to live in Horwich and made a fantastic charity shop that, I don't know, somebody with a really good record collection just used to dump a load of 7 inches. So I had all these crazy, and I have got quite an eclectic music taste. So it just sort of carried on. I mean, I'm going to do it again in August for Wilderness. I think August, September for Wilderness Records. But people just mean, I think, okay, I'll do it. It's fun. I need a few drinks. I've not got the steadiest of hands anywhere. So when I first start off, I'm so nervous. But once I've got a pint of cider down there.
Yes.
I'm all right. I don't do requests.
Yeah. Oh no!
Yeah,
see, I'm always there saying, "Can I just have this song?"
I know,
usually some 80s.
I did shout it. I remember years ago we were doing it in Charlton, and this young woman kept coming up and going, "Have you got any Oasis?" And I said, "No." And she kept coming back, "Have you got any Oasis?" And in the end, I said, "I'm really sorry, love, but can you?" Any Oasis, and I don't know. Have you seen the state of my racket? It's just boxes full of. So they literally just go, that'll do.
Yeah, this is.
I did find it later and apologise. She was in the toilet when I went. I said, "I'm so sorry, I didn't." I said, "It's quite stressful. I'm not really a DJ, so this is quite stressful for me."
Yeah, because you're managing.
Yeah, you're shouting at me. I can't cope.
I will. If ever we go back to clubs and night, I will not ask for a request for a song. Maxine, on a more kind of seriouser note, if you like, I don't think that's a real word, but one of the things that I think we all admire about you is your charity work, and you mentioned the Women in Prisons charity before, and of course there's lots of other charities, Howard League, Trust for Prison Reform, and so on. But LifeShare, which is a grassroots charity helping homeless people in Manchester, working to help prevent and break the cycle of homelessness and reduce harm and promote health. It's a charity that you support, you and I both support, run by the brilliant Julie Vickers, who's been running that charity for God knows how long. I think it's 20 years or 30 years. And at Christmas, which is the main time that I volunteer, with donations and, giving a day is nothing really. But I wondered, what's your kind of incentive for supporting that brilliant charity? Because it's grassroots, so it's not covering admin costs. It's volunteers and it's run with minimal funding, and it's actually taking, it's sleeping bags. I mean, at Christmas, I think I've never delivered so many sleeping bags in my life to people who actually need it. So where does that passion for LifeShare come from?
It's interesting because I think when you're sitting, and I hate that word celebrity, but people always ask you to get involved with charities. And I always think the big name charities have got lists of people that they can put their name to.
Yes.
And it was something that I was introduced. I met Julie, who was then working with Judy, brilliant Julie Boyle. And I'd met her in the coffee pot, and I remember thinking, it's terrible at the time. I remember thinking, I don't know if I got time to commit to, or not, because people always say, and you think, I'd love to, but then I don't want to, not be available.
Exactly.
There's no
I agree.
point,
Yes.
If I can't get him sort of involved. And
Yes.
so I sort of went going, I'm not sure about this. And Julie must have spoke for about 5 minutes, and I went, I've got to get involved with these. And because what really struck me was the fact that a lot of those young people they were dealing with, there were young people who other agencies had sort of washed their hands off, have gone, your needs are too complex for us, for whatever reason.
Yeah.
And it just really struck a chord. And I spend a lot of time I did before the pandemic, in Manchester at night, because you're coming into a theatre and it's late.
Yeah.
When the show's finished, the audience have gone, you're getting changed, you might be having a quick drink with the cast, or sometimes you're leaving at 11:30, 12 at night. And that's when you see a different side of Manchester.
Absolutely.
And especially at the Royal Exchange, lots of people were sleeping in the doorways.
Yes,
you get
on the
to
steps.
chat. Yeah, you get to chat. I'd be in the car park. There'd be the guys by the machine. So you just got to know these people. You get first name terms, you're chatting, and you start to hear the stories. And that's, everybody had a different story. Everybody's story was sort of extraordinary, and then actually oddly sort of ordinary things that had put them there that was shocking, and it just really opened my eyes. I'd always been very, aware about the homeless problem in Manchester, but once you really start to see these people as individuals, and it was the young people, and I started to see more women.
Yes, and that really upsets me for reasons that maybe they're sexist, I don't know. But when you see women homeless, and I think, are they menstruating? What do they need?
Exactly.
It's bad enough seeing men and young men, but women, I find that quite upsetting. And then having a need or a feeling, what can we do to help?
Well, I think because it's like where the sort of criminal justice system is stacked against women in the way that there's more provision for men.
Yes.
Especially when men have, this is my understanding, when men have committed a crime, there's more provision before they're incarcerated, in a way, where women, it seems, there isn't there's as much provision. And you always used to think with the women on the street, there was sort of more, again, provision in place for women not to end up on the street, or just, and you speak to a lot of the men and it was a relationship breakdown. So then they were out, so it was that way. Obviously the mother had stayed with the children and that sort of, but when you started to see women, and just, it's the young women, and speaking to a lot who were care leavers, who had been thrown in flats in the middle of nowhere in areas that they didn't know. And it's that whole thing of going, right, you're out the care system now. There you go. There's a flat. And now deal with real life. How do you do that?
Yeah.
How pay bills, sort this out. Of course, within 6 months, and speaking to especially young women who were gravitating back towards, or not even back, but gravitating towards the streets because there was communal, they felt secure. And you thought, well, what's wrong? It's not, people go, well, they've been given a flat and they don't stay in it. Well, it's not that simple. Yeah. And we need to start to understand that these people have complex needs, and it's really, their existence is really complex, and street life's complex. But once you've become acclimatized to something, you can't just throw people in a flat and expect them to, just get melt into whatever normal life may be. So I spoke to Judy, then I went into the same day, they said, would you, to Julie. And then I went that day to meet Julie. And I remember just walking into Life, and there was a young woman painting the hallways. I went in. Oh, yeah. And you went upstairs, and it was just packed full of young people, and they were all eating pot noodles, and they were getting socks, and they were chatting, and it was just the atmosphere. It was just buzzing, and I could see the respect that they had for Judy and Judith, but also the respect Judy and Judith had for them. Yeah. And it was so warm, and they were talking through some of the cases and what people have been up to, and there was no judgment against these young people. Yeah. And again, some weren't what we'd call technically homeless, but they had issues at home that felt that they weren't always at home. And it's that there seems to be a new culture now of youngsters living on the street who would sound technically homeless, but it feels a safer place for them. Yes. Or that they'll spend a couple of nights because they've got a group, and you think life's really difficult now. And people are craving some sort of connection and community, and whatever that might be with young people. So it just really spoke to me. I was just so impressed by the work they were doing, but it was really hands-on and, like you say, grassroots. Yes, and actually people receiving, because some of the work is psychological support and psychiatry, because, Judy's been working with some real experts to help the young people. But I really admire your involvement there from,
as you say, listening to them, to doing the auction, because there was an auction at Christmas. And I was so impressed because I recorded Judy saying a few things about live share, which got something ridiculous like 11,000 views of it. I mean, that was partly thanks to Secret Barrister. But the auction, so doing even like hands-on things like the auction to raise more money and funding.
But you think it's things like that. You do, it's not hard, but you think, I don't really, what do? I give you a little bit of my time. It's not really, there's this whole, and I get it now, there's a culture of getting a recognisable face to front something, and you think, sometimes you feel a bit of a charlatan because you think, well, really, I've got my nice life. What am I really doing that's a major sacrifice? It's not, and I think there's so much more I could still be doing, but I suppose, we are in a funny time that people gravitate towards, like say, celebrity or familiar faces, or, I mean, I don't know, but I think, I sometimes think I really don't do enough. There's much more, I'd love to be doing to get involved, to really get involved.
It's interesting, isn't it? I mean, if you had a call to action, because I'm always trying to get, our women and men, male lawyers, to think about how we can use our transferable skills to help charities and boards or, non-profits and, social enterprises to give back so that we're not just, doing our day job, getting paid, and that's it. Yeah. I'm a great believer in being more than ourselves and giving back into a system that can't always provide for everybody. So I just want, if you had a call to action for lawyers, can they get involved in charities like Life Share and,
Of course, but again, it is that thing, isn't it? Your expertise, we have all got skills, whatever that may be. If it is just, let's say, about awareness, I mean, I don't know. I think what was, and sometimes, again, it's that slight self-deprecating. What are my skills? Well, it doesn't necessarily mean about being what you do for a living. What are your skills as a human? Yes. That you can give. But I think we've all got, something we can do to get involved. And I think even, it doesn't have to be on a mass scale. I still believe, I remember years ago getting very sort of, apathetic about where I was politically and what was happening in the world. And then just started to think that even if one person just does something to affect somebody else's day, that's enough. Yeah. That is enough. I know we look and we're in this crisis point now about protest and what's happening, and what the Tories are going to completely ban protest and where we are. And then people are arguing, does protest work? But we need an outlet, whatever we think it works or not. We need an outlet where our voices can be heard. We need to be able to take to the streets and go, enough is enough. But we also, it is about that one-to-one individual, just a silly thing. I mean, I know it might sound naive, but silly things about just talking to somebody else, smiling at somebody, bit of compassion, just a bit of awareness. It's about visibilities, and I think it's about that, and it's and about us all being vigilant about what's going on around us. Yeah. Yeah. And even if if it's that thing, there's nothing I can do, so I'm not going to get involved. There is something you can do, even if it doesn't feel massive. We're all part of the human. We're all one race, aren't we? We're all part of the human race. We've got that connection that I think
connects all of us.
And I just sometimes all this sort of I still remember, and it struck me. I was doing streetcar name design. I remember coming down after the show, and I'd gone to the car park, and there was a guy who used to sort of sit asking for money near the machine called Stephen, and I always used to chat to him. And anyway, I came down one night, and there's a man with a clipboard sat with him, and it was about 11:45 at night, and I went, and this man had his back to me, and I sort of went, "Hiya, Stephen," and this guy didn't look at me, and I went, "Are you all right?" Because he seemed very sort of official. I thought, what's he doing at this? I said, "Are you all right?" And he sort of looked at me and said, "No, my friend's just OD'd in the car park." I said, "You're joking?" And he said, "No." And I said, "Right." And he said, "I've got to talk to this guy." And he said, you go. And off I went down the stairs, and there was a couple there with two police, and they'd obviously just moved the body. And I just said to the policeman, I said, "What?" I said, "Who do you know who it was?" Because something, and you thought, I was sick feeling going, is it somebody that I know, somebody I spoke to? And he said, "Obviously we can't tell you that, blah, 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 blah." And then this couple came up to me and they said, "Oh, will you sign my programme?" And I said, "Yes, another homeless, but drugs." And it was just the attitude. And I thought, you've not seen a human being, have you? And I went, I'm not going to sign your programme, sorry. And I went and got in my car, and I was sort of so upset because I thought, it's this attitude of...
Yes, of another.
Yeah, that they're not part
yeah.
of... You know, and even calling someone homeless, you know, they're a homeless man. Well, homeless woman is somebody, you know, lives on, it's that whole title as well. It's not, is it? It's how do we, you know, because we can all, just a couple of, a chain of events, and we can all be in a very different situation than we're in.
Absolutely. I think, I can't remember, it was a guest called Chris Daw. And which leads me to a question I'm going to ask you about a favourite book. If you've got a favourite book or a favourite fictional lawyer, which is not yourself, as a the modern day Rumpel of the Bailey, which I always loved reading, and the John Mortimer books. But I think it was Chris Daw who was saying that his favourite book. I can't remember the book now. I have to listen to which episode it was. I think it's about episode 30, about that idea that is, people are only a few moments away before something changes or something dreadful happens.
Yeah.
They're in the system. So I wonder if you've got a favourite book you can share. We've got a book club, you see. So we're always looking for good books. So I wondered if you had a favourite book, and don't do what Lady Hale did, which was to say, as the first woman in the Supreme Court, Yorkshire woman, I tend to like whatever I'm reading presently. Whereas some people have a book that stayed with them, whether it's, or when I say the lawyer, Atticus Finch, To Kill a Mockingbird, or Nelson Mandela, whatever it is. We're always looking for books. It doesn't have to be legal. But I wondered if you had a favourite.
Well, I mean, and it's sort of a bit of a cliche, but I suppose the book that always stayed with me, because it was bought as a gift when I was 10 by my grandfather, was The Ragged Trouser Philanthropist. Mm. And I remember him, and it was the first time I'd been really bought a book that wasn't a book to read for school or to, and I still got the copy.
Oh, right.
And it's got the colourful sort of ornate. And actually I've just been following two sisters, the Rickard sisters, who were doing sort of a graphic novel of it. So and I know it's sort of one of those, the old lefties all love her. But I think it was more to do, it was bought by my step-granddad Jim. He bought me that book, and he... In my home with my mum and my dad before my dad left, we didn't have any books. My dad used to sort of be a lorry driver, and my mum was a reader. I think, but it was still, you got books from the library, but I don't remember. They used to have a little shelf at the back of the bed, and I think there was about 3 books on, that was it. And I remember having our friend Sonia, when I was at school, and her parents were teachers, and going into their house and having bookshelves full of, that was really exciting. And I remember aspiring to,
have a wall. But my parents were the same. They didn't have much money, but they bought encyclopedias. Remember those?
Yeah.
They had like walls and walls of them. And we were always reading them because they were books, That was a real love of books. Yeah, interesting.
Well, I think, but I do read, and I sort of go, that's my favourite, and then I move. But it is really hard. It's those books I think you read
quite young.
Younger. I mean, things like Wuthering Heights that I think, had a massive impact on me, because I think, again, when I was younger, it seemed like Kathy, she was this, I'm probably reading, there's so many, books and films I go back to now and go, oh, how sexist, how, But at the time, it just depends what your vision was of this. And she seemed like a heroine that I could, I probably, again, you sort of look, you go, Heathcliff, it was all very sort of, it was a very dodgy relationship they had.
Yeah, I know. Now we're analysing it. Hang on, don't ruin it for me.
Exactly, but at the time, it seemed like these two, it was about these two, when I was a teenager, sort of my early teens, when these two minds that came together, and that sort of soulmates and your connection, and that seemed very exciting. There was a darkness to it, and I do like, I'm sort of, even though I wouldn't say I'm a dark, but I do like that sort of slightly a little bit occulty type sort of vibe in things. You know what I mean? I'm quite sort of interested in that.
Interesting. And what about the fictional lawyer? Do you have one, or what do you say?
I have to say, I'm obsessed with Talking Pictures TV, which is on 81 on Freeview, and they show all the old films. And they have
I'm writing it down.
And they show they're brilliant, and they show all the old movies, and they have been showing Run Paul of the Bailey again, and watching it, but just. It's the writing and his performance, Leo Kern. But there was a scene the other day and it was just him and his wife and she was in the kitchen cooking. And I thought, this is more naturalistic than anything she's going away and she's moving around the kit. And I thought, look at this now, actors everything's done so quickly and the scripts aren't so dynamic. And the actual, you look at these, and I think I wish they go back to that. The give actors words. They can deal with it. Now they chop everything down. But it was just the skill of the performers, but also the dialogue. But
do you think television's had a part in that? I'm thinking about Killing Eve, which I came very late to. That sort of, chopping everything in series so that the audience is gripped. And it's all
and I think we've got shorter attention spans now, haven't we?
Yes.
I think we because of phones, because of computers, laptops, the internet, Googling and Instagramming and Twittering and Facebook. I think people's attention spans quicker. I don't think people read headlines now. They don't seem to read full articles, do they, as we know,
true.
and blah blah blah. And I do, and as well. But I just think you get scripts now, and it's very. I mean, Peter Moffat. That's why I always thought his scripts were brilliant because he still gave actors some hefty dialogue. Yes. And it's when you can sort of conquer that kind of dialogue. I mean, sometimes it's great. And I think acting's a craft. But I think it's that film influence of people don't say very much. It's all in the looks.
Yes.
It's become very expressionless, I think now. It's all that single tear, isn't it? And people not giving too much away. And I think, well, I don't know. I don't know anybody. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Everyone I know is really... I mean, there is this thing in less is more in acting, especially if you're on screen. But I always think, if you believe what you're saying and what you're doing is believable, it doesn't matter how big you are. I wave my arms around like mad in real life, but there's certain rules within film and telly that, don't do that. But why not? If it's real, it's real.
That's very true, actually. Of course, in court we don't. Unlike the Americans who are, walking up and down.
Oh, yeah.
As you know, we're behind the lectern or we're behind, the rows in court. We're not, we try and put our arms back. So, Maxine, can I ask you then about writing? Will we be able to see some more writing from you?
Yes, I'm writing. I'm doing a little project for Leeds Playhouse. I'm sure they won't mind me saying it's celebrating the 50 years of the Playhouse. So different writers have been given a decade. So I've been given the 1990s.
Oh, yes.
So I've just handed my first draft in yesterday. So that's been fun, and I do enjoy it's a monologue, and I sort of enjoy. I've only done a few. I did one a couple of years ago about at the Old Vic. I had a season of sort of celebrating when we got the people's vote, and I'd written something about a woman in prison and about how not having the vote when you're in prison and what that meant and blah, blah, blah. And I loved it. And the fantastic Siobhan McSweeney from Derry Girls, who's now doing a fabulous job of doing the pottery throwdown. She's just fabulous.
I love Derry Girls.
Yeah, wasn't it brilliant? She's just brilliant. So Siobhan, I'd worked with her, we'd done a play at the Royal Court, and when I was writing it, I went, I know we'll be able to make this, shine. And she did an amazing job. So I'm doing that, and then I'm writing I'm co-writing a musical with the fabulous Cyril Davies that originally came from a commission at the Royal Exchange. So we're on that at the moment. It's based on a true story of a Yorkshire woman, an older Yorkshire woman who's quite big and she was big in Labour politics. That's given. So
okay.
So it's very tongue in cheek, but we've got some, there's some political message going through it, but we want to write a fun night out. So that's,
exciting.
But again, we're in a situation now where theatres haven't got, it's a very, it's saying it's a musical. I think it's more, you say, play with songs. And we've boiled it into a smallish cast. So just fingers crossed, because theatres are really going to struggle now coming back, and what they're able to put on and what they can, afford, and, till they get themselves back on the feet, whenever that may be.
Absolutely. And people should start, booking now if I can do any sort of advertisement. Having played these really interesting roles, not in the criminal justice system, in the law, and, this podcast is really about showcasing leaders in the law. Having seen our profession, it's not terribly diverse. We're making progress. And I think some of that came across also in Silk. Actually, that it was all certain types of people from certain types of backgrounds, and it was very obvious. And so 2 questions. One, what do you think about diversity, really, how it can improve, if at all? Secondly, there are a lot of young people who will be affected by COVID who want to get into the law, who are particularly interested in social justice as well as other areas. And I just wondered if you had any kind of tips or advice about resilience in life generally, because we've talked about all sorts, haven't we? I just wondered if you had any kind of guidance or on keeping going and not giving up.
It's easy for me in hindsight to say, but it's how do you keep going when you can't pay the rent? How do you keep going when you can't pay the bills?
Exactly.
And I think it is like going into law, like acting is a vocation, isn't it? It's something that you feel very passionate about, and it's a calling.
Yes, it is.
But it's very hard when you've got a calling and you haven't got the finance to back it.
Yes.
But it is about finding ways and means. It shouldn't be. It shouldn't be about that. It should be that everybody should have, again, access to training, access into any profession that they want to participate in.
Yeah.
There's sort of a diversity. I mean, again, it's about, I think television and film has a big part to play in exposure, in visibility. And we can only change in television until we start getting people in positions who are commissioning dramas who are from diverse backgrounds, more women of colour, more working class women of colour in positions, because I think stories are still getting put on television and made into films because it's the people in positions who go, oh, well, that's a story I understand. And it's who is allowed to tell their story. And it's letting more people in to tell their story, because they're much more interesting stories. I mean, I'm still... I'm still and I know, broadcasters are trying to make changes. But I mean, if you look back to Silk now, I mean, it was funny the other day, I looked at a picture and went, oh God, it's just full of white blonde people.
But that is the bar.
Well, yeah, but it was really quite, and actually now, and I mean, I may be called out for this, but I sort of go, for one thing, it looks dated.
Yeah.
I don't want to see, just on a personal taste, I don't want to see any drama, any theatre, any film, any television that's an all-white cast. I'm not interested. You know what I mean? And as well, we need to start, and have a conversation with people, and it's, I know it's tricky, but they're going, well, if we cast a person of colour, but this person is a victim, and then what are we saying? And I know it gets complex with people, but talk to the people who will play those parts, talk to those actors, have the conversations.
Yes.
Because it just needs all to be exploded, doesn't it?
It does, and I get very upset when I see, especially black actors and women who go to America. Well, they've got their own issues over there, but actually British actors and British, black minority actors go there, have huge successes because they can't get past beyond playing a robber in a television, a television or a theatre.
We've got. I mean, I worked in criminal justice with Sophia Canedo, one of the best actresses this country has turned out. And I don't know whether I hope so, but I remember Sophie saying she'd had a conversation with her agent saying, if you want the career you deserve, you need to go to America.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's racist. This our system is still, if Sophia Canedo can't have, she's Oscar,
Oh, I know, totally. I mean,
but it's not just so, there's so many actors and actors that I think you shouldn't have to. Why should they have to relocate? And I always remember Riz Ahmed said a brilliant comment, and I'm paraphrasing now, but he was talking about, he said, in America, when you look at the screen, you think this is it. If you watch the films and television, you think, what an amazing, accepting, diverse.
Yes.
It's not. But you watch British and you go, it can't be. We don't, he said, he believed that the UK was more sort of diverse, but not on screen. we don't reflect. And
that's true.
Of course he did. And if I watch one more Northern drama and I go, everyone's white.
No,
everyone's
what
white.
about Olders? And all my friends,
exactly. And people have this idea that Manchester and, that it's not diverse. I mean, I feel like saying to some of the producers and people from the, corporations, don't just pop up for a week.
Yeah.
Come and I think if you've got a high-powered job in one of the, production companies or one of the main, BBC, Netflix, ITV, whatever, you need to come and spend some real quality time in all the regions to really find out how diverse they are, what the communities want, what the communities are. Because I think, especially the North, I think there's still this...
Yes.
There's a tainted view about what is going on in the north of England. And I just get so frustrated for all the actors, so many... We've got a wealth of talent of, actors of colour, actors of colour that are not getting the work, because I still think as well, they make dramas... They'll do a drama set in the black community, but it's always in London.
Yes, I know.
Why don't they make drama? And it's sort of a bit... I don't want to,
but it's cheaper. It's cheaper.
But it feels to me that if somebody's black and has a northern accent, that's too much.
Yes, I know.
You know what I mean? We can't quite cope with that.
Yeah.
It's like, we've got two issues at once, have we? Oh, no. It's ridiculous.
Yes,
I know. It's absolute. And it's like, come on. And not just about, look at I May Destroy You, Michaela. Oh my God, amazing.
Yeah.
And amazing, for women of colour, but just amazing for women. I watched that. I wanted to cry. So my best, so one of my favourite bit was the blood clot on the bed. And I wanted to, if I ever see her, to kiss her and say, thank you for all those little that you, and it just shocked you. They go, God, where are we? 2020.
Yeah.
Last year when it was on, that was still issues around women and women's physiology and just women's rights and what women are sexual, we're allowed to exploit sexuality and what, and the abuse and obviously with the Pap Esidou character as well. But I just thought, but we need more.
We need more of it.
But if you're not encouraging people, because I think there's a thing as well, it's all this, it's like with actors. Experience, names have got to be a name. You've got to take more risks with new writers.
Yeah.
Give them a go. Give them a go. They're not going to... It's like we were saying, don't get rid of studio spaces in theatres. Don't get rid, because this is where all that amazing talent is coming through.
Yes, and where they kind of start and, and grow. Yeah, I mean, in some respects, it's similar to law, isn't it? Take a risk on the people who don't look like those in the leadership roles, those who, the traditional looking silk. I mean, last year, or the year before, I forget now, 6 black women got silk, and it was big news, seriously big news. And then actually you think, well, it shouldn't be really.
Of course it shouldn't. And it's like acting, it's like on television. You need to see yourself.
Exactly.
How can you ever trust if you cannot see yourself? Yes. How can you ever connect if you cannot? And you walk into an environment that's all white or all male. How do you
sort of represent?
Come on, we're so far. I mean, I know there are loads
of efforts. The JSC have done loads of efforts.
It's not happening quick enough, is it?
No, it's not. And so we do need to think about it. And it's right that people should be prosecuted for crimes, knife crimes, and a variety of very serious crimes. But the process has to be right, isn't it? If you're prosecuted fairly and you feel like you've had a fair trial, you're more likely to be more trusting of a system. Yeah. So actually, it's in all our interests. It's not just a moral argument, is it? It's not the business case of McKinsey saying, more diverse businesses are more profitable. This is actually about social justice and what's going on.
It's just on the basic level of everyday, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. People's everyday existence, being able to move around whatever, section of society, feeling safe, feeling represented, feeling they can see somebody like themselves or somebody sounds like themselves. And because if you can't see people like yourself, then you feel again that you're isolated. It's not for me, is it?
Yes, and it's distancing, so you won't even consider it as a career, which is how we started this podcast. I think we can do better. So Maxine Peake, thank you for a wonderful session. What's next? I want you to share with us anything big.
What have I got? Well, it's all this. It's not been, I don't think there's been a press release yet, but I am going to do I'm going to start filming. I'm doing a BBC project, a 4-parter.
Brilliant.
Which is very interesting. I think it's a fabulous script, fabulous young female director. I don't know who else is in the cast yet, but I'm very excited about that. So that will start at the end of April. That's all I can sort of tell at the moment. But
Right.
So.
Sorry. I just got very excited.
I know. What can I sort of? But it's it's tackling issues within a workplace, which I think is very current.
Oh, right. Well, I hope so. I do employment law, so I shall be watching with a beady eye. Maxine Peake, Martha Costello, thank you so much. For joining me on Talking Law, and best of luck. I hope you'll come back on so we can have a discussion about the new programme.
Love to.
At the end of April, so we'll all be waiting eagerly. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sally.
A huge thank you to Maxine Peake for being so generous with her time. It was fascinating to hear so much about her career and her passion for the law. I'm Sally Penni, MBE. I'd love you to keep in touch. You can find me on Twitter @SallyPenny1 or search for Sally Penni 1 or Women in the Law UK on LinkedIn. You can also find out more about the work of Women in the Law UK via our website and our many educational webinars, including Women in the Law UK on YouTube and my brand new series, Law and Guidance Podcast. Thanks to our production team, Sam Walker and Michael Blaze at What Goes On Media.